What is going on, gecko guys and gals? Today, we're going to talk about, do leopard geckos drop their tails? Stick around and find out. Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order. Alright guys, well first I wanted to show off our beautiful model for today, who just jumped out of my hand. Thankfully we're on a table here. You could see this one red spot on its back. Really cool. Red spot on an orange gecko. This is an eclipse gecko. That means that the eclipse gene washes out the saturation level of the orange. And she jumped again. Nevertheless, it's really cool to see a red spot on the gecko. So we're talking about a fairly common question in leopard geckos. Do they drop their tails? How often do they drop their tails? And is it likely for your gecko to drop their tail? Well, we're gonna answer all three of those questions today. I don't have a name for this gecko yet, but maybe you could drop a suggestion in the comments below, and by the end of this video, we'll have a name for her. Let me check to see if she's a her. Yeah, she's a her. And that's the main reason why you would need to hold the tail of a gecko. Checking for gender and ovulations in females. So let's tackle question number one. Can a leopard gecko lose its tail? Is it physically able to lose its tail? Yes. I will drop a video of a leopard gecko losing its tail here on screen so that you can see what that looks like. Have I ever had a leopard gecko of mine drop its tail? No. I've never had a crested gecko of mine drop its tail. I've never had a leopard gecko of mine drop its tail. So that just shows you, for all the people who are really negative against us out there, how careful we are with our geckos. Because there's a lot of people that will like look at me handling the geckos and be like, oh, you're handling them too rough. Oh, you touched it by the tail. In reality, can you touch a gecko by the tail? Yes. Can you hold a leopard gecko by the tail? Yes. Do you need to be careful and understand where to hold on the tail, how tightly to hold on the tail, and be willing to give and take with the motion of the gecko so that you're not stressing the gecko out when you hold it by its tail? Yes. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you guys for being here. Sometimes I gotta talk to the haters for a little bit because I know they watch these videos and support us and give us good reviews anyway. For you guys who are here to actually learn, leopard geckos can be held by the tail. Now, if a leopard gecko drops its tail, it's going to do something called regeneration. This is not a regenerated tail. This is a birth defected tail. This gecko was born with its tail that way, which happens sometimes, but it's very similar to what a regenerated tail oftentimes will look like. Now, a tail can break off at the very base, which is up here. It could break off in the middle, or it could break off at the tip. If it breaks off at any one of those locations, that's where it's gonna start regeneration from. If it starts regeneration. If the leopard gecko is already an adult, like I have a leopard gecko in my collection here that is already an adult, it lost the last third of its tail for some kind of infection that it went through, like it cut itself open while shedding or something. That part of its tail got infected and it dried up, which is what it's meant to do. The skin dries up, the tip of the tail falls off, and then now you're left with the stubby tail. If the gecko is already an adult, you're probably not gonna see a regeneration. Regeneration mostly takes place for geckos that are babies or juveniles that lose their tails, and then it grows back a little funky shape. Sometimes it kind of looks like an arrowhead or a mushroom or something. I think one time I've even seen two tails breaking off after regeneration. It's pretty crazy what can happen. That's one of the reasons that scientists love studying these guys. I mean, they want to study their regenerative capabilities and see how applicable that is into the human and medical world. Another cool feature that this guy has is a claw foot. Look at that. It's actually 4 toes, but it kind of looks like 3, so I call it like a claw foot. It almost reminds me of like one of those alien species or something from outer space. It has that claw foot right there, which obviously does not affect its growth or its size or its health. And it also has the stubby tail. And you might ask why that might be. Well, we'll do a whole nother video on the potential for birth defects and different defects that I've seen in the collection here, but inbreeding is one of the reasons. Line breeding could be another reason. For example, tangerine leopard geckos have been line bred to each other for so many years in the United States that if you breed one tangerine to any other tangerine, there's a really good chance that they share similar DNA from way back when tangerines were first created. And so technically now you're inbreeding without meaning to inbreed. You thought it came from two separate lines, but in reality there is some DNA overlap, and there happens to be some defective DNA overlap causing certain issues. It could also be an incubation situation. Maybe the temperatures rise or drop or spike, or it could just be natural luck of the draw. Things happen genetically sometimes. This happens in the human world, right? There are humans born with diseases, humans born with differences from the norm, and so it's not always a bad thing. I love little clawfoot right here, and I'm actually planning to breed little clawfoot to see if the clawfoot is going to be genetically passed down or if it's going to be something that's kind of like a one-off. I'm guessing it's a one-off. I'm guessing that this is not replicatable, but I want to study that just to know, you know, and record it for the hobby. So getting back to tail regeneration, another reason your leopard gecko might lose its tail is if you keep babies together. For example, we keep babies in pairs of 2 here, and I can literally count on 2 fingers the amount of issues that I've had with 300 to 400 geckos over the last 3 years that we've been breeding. We literally had maybe 2 issues. Like there was, I think last year, there was 1 baby leopard gecko that was born with a full tail. It was housed with its sibling, and at some point, the tip of its tail dropped or got eaten. I couldn't find it in the cage, right? So either the other baby nipped it, or it dropped, and then the other baby ate it, or the same baby that dropped its tail ate its tail. Who knows what happened? Or the tail just bioactively degraded into the eco-earth. I'm not sure. That was the one incident that I had from 2021. And then I'm sure there was one other incident that I've probably had, but I can literally count it on 2 fingers the amount of incidents that we've had by keeping babies in 2s. Now you could keep babies more. You could keep them 4, you could keep them 10. Ron Tremper kept them, I think I saw a video of his 16 babies in a tub. I'll have to try to find that video. It was either 8 or 16, but it was a very high number. Either way, it's definitely possible. But as those babies grow up, they could start being a little bit more competitive for space and food. But if you've ever kept leopard geckos together, they look so adorable together. They often sleep on top of each other, they eat together, they drink together, they sleep together. There's really not much of a risk. Anyway, we keep our leopard geckos in 2s. So 2 eggs per clutch. Each clutch gets put into a 6-quart container, and those geckos grow up for about 3 months. And again, I've put very expensive geckos in these situations, you know, black knight leopard geckos, dozens of black knight leopard geckos in this situation. So I trust it because I don't want my black knight expensive leopard geckos getting all chewed up and jammed up. So that just shows you the amount of trust that I place in this system. Now, just so you see that it's not a one-off, I'm gonna grab a couple of geckos and show you guys how I hold them by the tail and how it doesn't cause an issue. I've never had a tail drop yet. All right, guys, pick a number 1 through 300. And we're just gonna pick one off the shelf here. Oh, a lemon frost leopard gecko, cool. I like these, these are very valuable to me. I wouldn't hold it by the tail if I thought that it was an issue for the gecko. Normally, if I'm picking up a gecko at first, I'll usually grab it by the body. See, I grabbed the gecko by the body, and now we're good. Especially if I know that the leopard gecko is not a biter. If I know that the leopard gecko is a biter, I might kind of like grab it by the tail a little bit like that, and pull it out of its cage, and then quickly throw my other hand underneath the gecko so that the gecko isn't dangling. And that's the point that I want to make is, in my opinion, you don't want to hold the gecko by the tail and allow it to dangle. The secret to holding a leopard gecko by the tail is grabbing it close to midway or the base. The closer you could get to the base of the tail, the better. Some geckos are going to be a little more squirmy. And it's actually good that we got an example of a gecko right here that is actually a little bit more squirmy. So I can show you what happens when a gecko is squirmy. See, when I pick him up, he kind of fights a little bit. Some geckos just lie there like, have me, do as you please. Other geckos are a little bit more scrappy, like this guy. The wild type geckos are the most scrappy. They're pretty cool. So here's the gecko here. It is a female, so if I'm checking for ovulation, see, she kind of fell off my hand there, which put her in position. I'm gonna grab the base of the tail, and look, if she's holding my hand like that, that's actually a good thing. That means less pressure on the tail. Now, when I'm holding the tail, I am not holding it very tight at all, but I am holding it firm enough to where the gecko doesn't slip out, so I'm not dropping it. And if the gecko squirms and moves really quickly, let it fall onto your hand or a table surface. Don't be like holding it, pinching it by the tail, not allowing it to fall. And that's what I mean by step number 3 is going with the movement of the gecko. You see how this gecko is moving right now? I'm gonna go with its movement. If the gecko's moving forward, I'm gonna kind of see how jumpy this gecko is. So this is a good example. I'm gonna grab it by the tail. See, this is a really awkward angle, but I'm gonna grab it by the tail and I'm gonna kind of go with the motion of the gecko. And now look how calm this gecko is. Gecko's not even moving at all because I'm going with the motion of the gecko. If the gecko squirms in a certain direction, I pivot in that direction. How many of you guys have seen Friends? I'm gonna see if I can find that clip where they're like, pivot, pivot.
I just don't think it's gonna fit.
Oh yeah, it will. Come on, up. Up. Yes. Oh, here we go. Pivot. 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 Pivot.
It's so funny. Love Friends, gotta watch that. So look how long I've been holding this gecko now and how squirmy it was before and how non-squirmy it is now. And that's the power of suggestive handling. Suggestive handling is going with the flow of your gecko, being calm and not like too grabby and too forceful with the gecko, and the gecko starts to calm down and understand that, you know what, the situation is not so bad. Here's this leopard gecko. I have a feeling she's gonna squirm this time. Hopefully I don't jinx myself, but check this out. We're gonna grab her by the tail. She's moving forward, so I'm moving forward with her. I'm dropping, look, she's hanging for a brief second. Look at that, perfect. I told you not to do this because it's not recommended, but I'm so good at it that I just, look, she's holding, then look, her tail just grabbed. So this is not hurting the animal at all. I can feel it. I'm barely holding the animal. It's gripping on to me with one of its feet. And that's what I mean by going with the flow of the animal. Go with the flow. If the animal's gripping you in a way that makes the animal feel more comfortable and it doesn't interrupt what you're trying to accomplish, then go with that. All I want to accomplish with this girl is checking for ovulations. Sometimes their back legs will kind of cling onto your thumb a little bit. As long as it's not getting in the way, let them cling. That makes them feel more comfortable and it will make them less squirmy and therefore less risky towards anything happening. Because at the end of the day, anything can still happen. So let's put this girl away. Let's check out a boy. All right, so this is my big boy Shelby. He is a super giant, comes from the Moose line, Ron Tremper super giant line. Sometimes in the past, he's been a little bit finicky on me, which scares me a little because he has some big chompers. And if he bit down on me, I would be bleeding for a long time. I would need to like wash my hand for 10 minutes because the blood would keep oozing and that just slows down your progress, you know? Plus, who likes to get bitten? When I pick him up right now, I'm gonna show you a little technique that I'll use with some more aggressive geckos sometimes. Now he's not aggressive, look at him. Let's pretend that he is aggressive because sometimes he goes through moods. What I'll do is I'll kind of grab the gecko by the tail right there and lift them onto whatever surface that I'm trying to accomplish. So again, grab, lift. As long as it's quick, grab, lift. Now this is only for the sake of the video. Only for the sake of the video. I want to show you how long I can let this guy hang for without it ever being an issue. And he's a big boy. So normally, when I do the grab and lift technique for aggressive geckos or even ovulating geckos that I'm checking, it's just quick. It's less than like 2 to 3 seconds. My sweet boy. He's rubbing up against the water. I want to show you just how secure of a system that this actually is. Okay, now we're not going to put him through too much stress or anything like that, but let's see if we could get a tail hold for, if I really push myself, 10 seconds. That's pretty long, but let's see if we could do it. For a 10-second hold, because their weight drags their tail through your fingertips, I'm going to try to get at the very base of his tail. Let's get a 10-second hold. Ready? And this was one of my more aggressive ones, and look at him. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi. Okay, he started to squirm a little bit there, and I didn't want to force him more than is needed, so I let him go. If I really wanted to, I could have probably held him till 10 seconds. That's what I mean by reading the body language of your animals. If your animal starts to squirm and become uncomfortable a little bit, readjust your position. So literally all day long, this is what I do with geckos. Hold, ovulation, ovulation, male, female. I use this hand, my other hand that's not holding, as a balancing beam for them. So they're doing like a handstand on it, and oftentimes they'll stand there forever. Check it out. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You get the point. I could have kept going there. I didn't want to end on 13. I was like, unlucky 13. What do you think about that, Shelby? His name is Shelby. At first, I thought he was going to be a girl. That's why I named it Shelby. I was hoping that he was going to be a she, but then he turned out to be a boy. And real quick, a lot of people ask, how do you know if he's a boy? You see that V-like pattern right there? Boom. That's a boy sign. All right, guys. In conclusion, I want to show you the leopard gecko that I was talking about that had the little bit of the infected tail that she dropped, and you know, it didn't regrow. So you can see the tip of the tail right there is like literally a tip. That was actually completely flat a couple of months ago, and now it's growing into an actual tip. So you can see that there's an actual little extension of skin stub that has grown. But once the gecko is an adult, their body doesn't put a lot of effort into regenerating the tail. It's mainly when they're babies. All right, guys, what did you think about this video? Did I answer all your questions about is it okay to hold a leopard gecko by the tail? Let me know in a comment below if there's any specific questions that you want me to answer. Also, if you want to recommend a new video for the future. You guys have been doing a great job recommending content already. I write down every single one of those recommendations that you make, and I try to accomplish it on a list little by little. So thank you guys so much. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. I appreciate bringing you content. Tune in Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our live stream where you can see me, interact with us, ask questions, get your questions answered, and see some cool geckos. So until next time, I love you guys, feed your passion, and remember, have a geeky gecko great day.